is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. Talking Wednesday night's 5-game MLB slate. We did have a pretty big slate earlier this morning, but we're back tonight with a 5-gamer, breaking it all down. As usual on Wednesday afternoons, Mr. Travis Mangone. Travis, how you doing on this Wednesday?
Yeah, excited to be here breaking down baseball. Only 5 games to talk about, but hey, I did a slate with you once that was 5 games. I wonder if this qualifies as an elite pitching slate. We do have some decent pitching on the slate, so should be a fun one to go through and break down. We got a lot to discuss, and I don't know. I mean, I had a pretty good day yesterday. I felt like I was really close on a lot of stuff. There were 2 big stands that I took, and they were Robbie Ray. It was Robbie Ray under hard and Canning under hard too, right? Like basically almost faded them, and that worked out really well. So need to kind of keep the mojo flowing, and hopefully I can have a good night.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in a non-DFS, non-betting state, had a little family reunion vacation in Washington State where you can't play DFS, you cannot bet on sports, you can't even play best ball in Washington State, Mangone. And like hanging out with the family and everything, but 5-6 days without any action, without any gambling, I'm ready to get back to it. I'm kind of chomping at the bit here. I did end up skipping the morning slate, got in at like 3 a.m. yesterday, and with all the trade deadline stuff, not having played DFS, no bets for almost a whole week, I had a lot of catching up to do, frankly, this morning. All the trades, I didn't really pay all that close attention to baseball while I was on a little break there. But you know what? Batteries are recharged. We're ready to dive back into baseball. And
what are your trade deadline takes? Do you have any good trade deadline takes for the people since you kind of dove into it today? Because I was happy with what the Mets did. I thought they did pretty good, and I feel like there were more moves than in the past. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's kind of going to be the case in general. A lot of fun trades, just because with the more playoff teams, more teams in contention. And so the teams that do have players to sell off, like Miami, I mean, they got rid of so many dudes. I think they did really, really well. The White Sox should have made more trades. I thought that was kind of stupid, but I guess not that surprising for the White Sox. And then, I don't know, it's been fun to see. I tweeted about it yesterday, but fun to see Jazz Chisholm break out in the Yankee uniform. Just, the talent was always so apparent with him. And some guys, it just takes a change of scenery, right? Maybe he likes the bright lights, certainly different going from Miami to the Yankees. So fun to see him perform well so far in the pinstripes. And, we'll see how these last couple of months of the baseball season shake out. We do have, of course, football coming up. A month until college football, I think, or maybe even slightly less. And even preseason starts tomorrow. It's going to be, kind of a shit show of a game, probably the Hall of Fame game. But, hey, I'm ready to get some football back on my television. How about you? I'm sure you're the same way.
Yeah, I always, even on that Thursday game, I typically put the game on, and I definitely remember in the first quarter, we're definitely watching dog shit a little bit because of the players, but it's just nice to see a football thrown on the TV. Yeah. So I'll definitely be enjoying that a ton. So listen, I am very much excited for it. I can't wait. So football tomorrow, and college, it's I would say it's even 3 weeks away or so. Or maybe it's the 24th or something, but it's sooner than you think, and it's going to go fast. So I'm excited for it all to get here.
Yeah, we got more into the college football streets in these last couple of years, and certainly an enjoyable time. You get the back-to-back big slate Saturday, Sunday. So looking forward to that. But for now, we've got a baseball slate to grind, a season to get through, and hopefully pick some winners. So we'll go through each of the 5 games, do the normal stuff that we do on this show. First game on the slate is Chicago and Cincinnati. This is a game with possible rain risk. I do think they're going to be fine to play in Cincinnati ultimately, but it is something to keep an eye on this time of year with the pop-up storms, that sort of thing. But I think we should treat the game like it's going to play normally as of now, at least a couple hours before lock. We've got Nick Lodolo, lefty for Cincinnati Reds going. He's been, frankly, a little bit disappointing. Not that he's had a bad season, but hasn't been the dominant Nick Lodolo that I know is somewhere in there. We haven't really seen it in a while. Yeah, not that he's been bad, between 10 and 17 fantasy points in each of the last 3. Had a couple of rough games before that. Really hasn't had a dominant outing in, a month and a half back on the June 18th against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I still do think, though, that Lodolo is capable of it. The pitch counts have been good in the last 2 outings. He's had some weird things happen to him. That Miami game, I think it was, or maybe Colorado, he was dominating a rain delay. He had to come out and didn't perform well when he went back in. But I do expect him to get back on track here against the Cubs. Obviously, a good matchup against the Cubs team that has really not put up a lot of runs outside of that first month or two of the season. So I think the matchup is good here for Lodolo, even in Great American Ballpark. And then on the other side, Kyle Hendricks, it's just not usable really at any price or any matchup for the most part for me. That includes this slate. It is a strikeout team in the Reds. I just can't get there. Kyle Hendricks, certainly a fair amount of interest in these Reds bats against Hendricks, and a pretty bad bullpen behind him as well. I'll throw it over to you, Mangone. What are you doing with this first game of the slate? Cubs and Cincinnati Reds.
Just to give a little slate context, I think this matters a ton. Like, this is Great American Small Park, and it's not just that. It's look at the other games on the slate. It's 85 degrees, wind blowing slightly out, and there is some weather lurking. But here's the other games. It's Houston in that dome. It's Padres Dodgers in San Diego, not a great park in run total. Then it's Angels and Rockies, which it's in that Angel Stadium. I know they're not the best pitchers and runs can score there, but you see the trend that's coming here, DC. And then we're followed up with 60-degree weather, Giants 8. So this is definitely a game that you should expect runs, especially with Kyle Hendricks on the opposite side. If you look at this Cubs team, I do want to touch on this first. So I know they got some runs against the Royals not too long ago, and they really are a very up and down team, and they're more down than up. I'll say that. I think they're very ownership sensitive, where if they are low owned, I think you want to consider them. Like Ian Happ hitting at the top is way better than what they've been doing with Nico Horner up there and whatever that lineup was they were putting out there for a month. Nico Horner in the 6 hole is definitely a lot better. Also, adding Cody Bellinger in the 4 spot is nice. Now, I know it's going against Lodolo, and he's a lefty. It's lefty-lefty, but Cody Bellinger is really good. He's not a bad player at all. You got Paredes up there in that 2 hole, who's a nice righty that I think is a nice little upgrade that they added. I mean, Christopher Morel, he's a good power bat, but he has so much downside as well. And I think they kind of needed that bat in their lineup in Paredes that isn't as volatile as him. So overall, I am going to like the Cubs. I think ownership is going to be very important on them. And I think I'm going to like the Reds a lot too. I mean, they have a huge run total. Kyle Hendricks is absolutely terrible. So ownership is going to be a huge factor here on how I handle this game, in my opinion. And when you look at ownership and you sort by it over at our friends at Saberson, everyone is going to be on the Reds, right? They're one of the better plays for sure on this slate. But I will say, Cubs, I think some of these Cubs bats could get overlooked, mainly the expensive ones. Like a Patrick Wisdom at 3.8, I could see people just gravitating towards him as a value. But some of these more pricey Cubs, I just think they could get a bit overlooked. So I think I'm leaning on playing a little bit of Cubs, but mainly those pricey ones, just because I think the ownership is too low on them. And of course, the Reds are a good play. If you are going to play the Reds, though, just try to get a little creative with it at times with how you play it. I don't always like to go in and play like the chalkiest stack with both the chalkiest pitchers. Then it makes it hard to build out your team. So the Reds are certainly a good play. Kyle Hendricks isn't good. And if you do play the chalky spot, you just have to think about, how am I going to make it different? You and I have talked about this on shorter slates. Maybe just play 4-mans, maybe find a way to get it unique with your construction, with your one-off options. Like, just think about that when you're playing these teams. I think that's really, really valuable.
Yeah, ownership-wise, like you said, I do think the Reds are probably going to lead the slate in terms of hitting ownership. Sabres got the Cubs pretty high on too against Nick Lodolo, which I get. I mean, it's the ballpark, like you mentioned. This does have by far the highest team total of any game on the slate. It's at 9.5. Next highest are the Astros, Pirates, and Angels, Rockies. But they're at 8.5. So a full run higher in this game. I do think that's going to lead to ownership for the hitters. And frankly, the bats in this game, outside of Cruz and really Bellinger, aren't that expensive. So, I do think these will be popular teams. Lodolo, it looks like his ownership might be a little bit lower. Sounds like you're leaning on the Cubs side of that one. I do think this is a situation where you definitely can play both, right? I totally get it with the Cubs. I do think they have upside. Obviously, the best park to hit in, bad bullpen behind Lodolo. But I still wouldn't be shocked at all if Lodolo came in as the highest scoring pitcher on the slate when it's all said and done. SaberSim's got him at 15% on this slate. That seems a little low to me, as in I think he's a pretty good play if he really is going to be 15% on. What's your thoughts on playing Lodolo himself against the Cubs?
Yeah, I get it, right? Like, I don't think it's a bad play. I guess when I just like look at the slate, there's other pitchers that I prefer. Like, of course, in MMA, yeah, it makes sense. But like, there's other guys I'd rather get to. Like, of course, I'm going to like Dylan Cease, Framber. We'll talk about his ownership and what we do with that. Logan Webb, I think, who's like, I'd say Logan Webb and Lodolo grade out as very similar plays when it comes to projection, ownership, price. And I just lean Logan Webb. I know the Oakland A's can be a problem and have been at times, but I just think I'd prefer Logan Webb to Lodolo in this spot specifically.
Yeah, very different pitchers, Lodolo and Webb, but I think when you kind of factor in everything, they do come out at similar plays. I'm with you. I think Webb is clearly the safer of the two. Lodolo, the one I think is more likely to rack up a ton of strikeouts, but no shortage of pitching on the slate, in my opinion. So you do certainly get the reason why Lodolo might be a little bit owned, given the plenty of, frankly, good options that we've got to choose from. We'll go to the next game on the slate. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Houston Astros. Jake Woodford going to make this start for the Pirates. He last pitched in the big leagues on June 6th against the White Sox. Actually, his only two outings of the entire season have come against the White Sox, neither of which went particularly well, especially his last one. Gave up 7 earned runs over just 4 innings, 10 hits. Frankly, one of the White Sox, probably one of their best hitting games of the entire season. Honestly, I'm not even sure why exactly he's starting this game. He has been good in the minor leagues, but has a long history of struggling at the big league level. I can't really assume anything other than he's going to kind of suck this time around too. So I do like Houston here. Got a decent team total sitting around 5. And then Framber Valdez at 8,900. He was kind of struggling there in the month of June, but July has been a different story. 2 30-plus outings for Valdez, including his last one of his best starts of the year, 35 DraftKings points against the Dodgers of all teams. So Valdez has been good recently. He does have a long track record, and he gets a Pirates team that, they have shown some signs of life recently, but I still do think overall this is a good matchup for Valdez. I like that he's pitching at home in the Dome. And, Valdez for me on the short list at starting pitcher today. No real interest in Woodford for me. Definitely prefer the Astros side, both pitching and hitting-wise in this one. Over to you, Mangone. What do you got for us? Pirates and Astros.
Yeah, 1,000% prefer the Astros side, right? It's one of those things too, when you look at these slates, like on short slates, I typically try my best to find ways to get away from the chalky offense if I can. Sometimes I don't see it making sense. I think it can make sense here because the chalk offense is the Reds, right? It's just very simple. They are it right now. And I'm not saying Kyle Hendricks is good, but I know the Reds, their downside can be really bad, right? When it comes to the variables of what they put out. The Astros, they don't have as much downside, right? They're not a team that strikes out. They put the ball in play. Like, this seems like a really good spot. And based on the ownership, I kind of want to take advantage of that. So I think this Astros team is definitely one I'm going to like. I think I prefer them over this Cincinnati team. And I'm going to take shots on Houston. Now, I'm not saying Houston's going to be unowned, but I just think of both teams, it looks like Cincinnati will gain more ownership than the Astros. And if it was flipped, I'd probably like the Reds more. But it's just simple math, and that's how I'm looking at it. So I'm going to be riding with the Astros a little bit against Woodruff. Don't think he's very good. And I think we got to like some of these Astros here in this spot. You could make an argument for some Pirates here. And the reason why is Framber Valdez is going to have ownership. And Valdez with ownership is always one that you can make the argument that, hey, upside's great, but downside can be bad. And they have a lot of righties that Pittsburgh can throw at them. I don't think we have that lineup yet. Let me just double check. Do you see it out, DC, or no?
I don't think it's out yet, no.
Yeah, I don't see it out. But with all those righties that they can throw at you, I just think there is some power that we should take chances on, right? You can make a case for Reynolds. I know Brian De La Cruz will likely be in that lineup for cheap. Andrew McCutchen, Brian Hayes, even Michael Taylor for a cheap punt at 2.3K, who hit a home run yesterday off of Hunter Brown. So we saw Hunter Brown struggle yesterday as chalk. Why couldn't Framber Valdez? And I don't know if Brown struggled, but like he gave up 5 runs. He wasn't awful because of the strikeouts that he got, but it just wasn't an ideal performance for Hunter Brown. So overall, I don't think the Pirates are crazy from a leverage perspective. Probably like them more when it comes to minis, but you can make the argument for them even as a 5-man, especially if you're playing someone like Dylan Cease on this slate, who's going to be an expensive option that we're going to want to consider.
Yeah. A couple of notes on Woodford, just to get a point across. I mean, just how bad he's been. Like if you just count 2023, 2024, so the few innings that he's thrown this year, and then he threw about 50 innings last year, a little bit less than 50. I mean, his numbers, like really low strikeout rates, very high walk rates, giving up a ton of power, 416 expected WOBA to lefties, 380 to righties. Like these are like true bottom of the barrel numbers across the board for Woodford. So you can really play anyone against this guy. It's a little bit interesting how good he's been at the minor league level since moving to the Pirates. But for me, he's kind of got to prove it. He's a non-prospect. He's 27. Has always been bad at the big league level. And I think that is by far the most likely outcome, is that he's just no good and he's going to struggle. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get blown up for sure tonight by the Astros, but I would be surprised if Woodford has suddenly turned a corner. He doesn't have good stuff. So I really do like the Astros here. Sabres got them lower owned than both the Reds and the Cubs. We'll see if that turns out to be true. I think it'll definitely be true for the Reds. Cubs, I could see it being pretty close between the Astros and the Cubs. I do prefer the Astros side of it, though. One of my favorite stacks tonight against Woodford for sure. I have no problem with the Pittsburgh guys you mentioned. Valdez isn't really a guy I love to stack against in general. Just doesn't give up a lot of power. Doesn't get blown up that often. But yeah, I have no problem if you're not using him, picking off a bat or two. The Pirates certainly have at least a few reasonable bats to choose from. So that's Pittsburgh and Houston. Biggest note for me there is just the struggles that Woodford's had, and I do think the Astros have quite a bit of upside here against Jake Woodford in that Pirates bullpen. We'll keep it moving to the West Coast. Yeah, 3 games out west tonight. First one we'll talk about is the San Diego Padres and the LA Dodgers. Fun pitching matchup here. Dylan Cease coming off a complete game no-hitter, 50 DraftKings points against the Washington Nationals. Last time out, I was not or could not play that slate, did not play that slate, so missed out there. Go ahead.
Did you see how it happened, DC?
Not exactly.
So the Padres trotted out, like obviously the Padres, they were how do I word it? The Padres were on the road. So they hit first, and Patrick Corbin went out there, and then they rested, obviously, their guys. Cease probably warmed up, though, and still went the 9 innings, which I thought was super impressive. Like, obviously, I understand that Cease didn't go right out there, but he had the rest for like an hour and a half after doing his whole routine, and then go out there and throw the 9 innings. I thought was really.
I did see a Boynton. He was tilting. He thought he was going to lose to Dylan Cease because of the rain delay, and then that didn't happen. Went up and put 50 fantasy points, maybe the best pitching performance of the year. He was dominant in the 2 outings before that too. So he's on that's 24 straight scoreless innings with 30 strikeouts in his last 3 starts. You do worry, or at least I worry a little bit. I got up to 114 pitches in that one. Has averaged like 107 pitches in his last 4 outings. It's been awesome, obviously, but kind of a tough matchup here. No Dodgers lineup yet, but I guess no Freddie Freeman is out, I think, with a family issue. I think what you're doing with Cease tonight is a big question mark because Sabres got him as the highest owned pitcher around 60% coming off the big outing He's obviously expensive, most expensive pitcher on the board as well. So, yeah, I say it often here, but I always give some pause when the most expensive pitcher is also the chalkiest pitcher. Just need a lot to go right. Obviously, Cease is good enough to get the job done in any outing, including this one. But curious what you're doing with Cease. Are you eating that chalk? Like you mentioned, if you're playing the Reds, maybe you go a different direction. And then we haven't even talked about Clayton Kershaw yet, who made his first start of the year last July 25th. So 5-6 days ago against the Giants. Was pretty good. Only went 4 innings. He did get 6 strikeouts, 72 pitches. I don't know how much they're going to let him go beyond, mid 70s, upper 70s in pitch count. Obviously, they're trying to, try to keep him ready for a playoff run. 8,200 for Kershaw against a low strikeout team that's playing pretty good right now. I don't think I'm going to get to Kershaw here. I think the bigger question is what do you do with Dylan Cease? We'll throw it over to you, Mangone, to answer that question.
Yeah, it's a good question. So one thing I'll note on these types of slates, I think it's okay, especially when we look at like the actual matchup. I think it's okay to play a bat against your pitcher, especially if it's like Ohtani, right? Like you could get away with a Cease Ohtani build, I think, today. Not saying do it with all your teams and every single different combination, but like I think that's one that is an exception on this slate specifically. For one, Sabres Ohtani at 2%, which seems pretty crazy. I don't think that holds, but we'll see. But I just think that matters a little bit. And there's some cheap offenses that we'll get to towards the end that I like, that I think are interesting, where I just think I'll have the salary to be able to pull that off. I know, again, this isn't your typical thing, but it's a 5-game slate. Typically, I like to do that more on like 3 gamers, but I just do think you can get away with it a little bit here. I'd definitely be curious. What is your thoughts on that, DC? On this slate specifically, can we play a bat against our pitcher? I know it's not super ideal, but when the bat's Ohtani, I think it's not crazy.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you want if you're trying to do that is a shorter slate, which you do have 5 games. And then we want a hitter who can do it himself, right, without the help of his teammates. That certainly applies to Ohtani. You can do it with the power. You can also do it with the speed against Dylan Cease. You can see him stealing a couple bags and getting there. And, I mean, if he's really going to be under 5% on a 5-game slate where there's not that many good hitting options, I don't mind that at all, playing Cease and Ohtani together. I wouldn't go beyond that. I wouldn't play any other Dodgers, I don't think. And if you're not playing Cease, if you're not playing Cease, I do think trying to find a way to get Ohtani into your lineup is a pretty good way to go. Because if Cease isn't going to get there, you would think that Ohtani certainly had something to do with it. So, yeah, I'll probably try to get Ohtani on any non-Cease teams. And, yeah, I'm with you. I have no problem playing him with Cease. It just makes you different right away, right? First, we know almost nobody's playing Ohtani. Almost nobody's playing Ohtani with Cease, especially given that they're the two, the highest priced pitcher and the highest priced hitter on the entire slate. So, yeah, I kind of do like that game theory aspect.
And I just know we have value and we can play him in outfield and first base, right? There's just so many ways you can play him. So, like, I just think that's the exception that I'm okay with. And that might be something that I do on this slate. We'll have to see. But that's the main guy that I like on the Dodgers. I do want to see what their lineup is because, man, if they do sit one of Will Smith or Teoscar Hernandez, I'm not saying they will, but if they do, that lineup just gets worse and worse, right? So I do think, though, I want to play Ohtani as a one-off. I definitely think he's a good play. And I don't love the Padres, but I also don't love Clayton Kershaw in this spot. Like Kershaw, and I didn't look at his last outing. I should just double check. He went only 4 innings, 6 strikeouts. He wasn't that bad. I'll just say this. I don't think the Padres are the craziest play at low ownership on this slate. So I'm definitely considering the Padres a little bit. Lineup doesn't look bad. It's Arise, Profar, Bogarts, Machado, Solano, Merrill, Kim, Campuzano, and Johnson. So only thing I hate is that ballpark. That's the one thing that gives me some pause. If this was in LA, I'd probably like it even a little bit more. But Padres I'll have a little bit of. The next game is the one I really want to talk about because I think that one's really interesting in tournaments. I liked it a lot yesterday, and I think I'm going to like it a lot here too.
Yeah, I don't mind the Padres play against Kershaw. He did, like I said, he did look pretty good in that first outing. He did miss a good amount of bats. Velocity was actually up a little bit overall from what we saw last year. But, he's been hurt the entire season. We just don't really know what we're going to get out of Kershaw. He's obviously not really close to the pitcher that he once was in his prime, where you wouldn't really dream of using anybody against him at all. So I don't hate that against the Padres. Just trying to get different. Obviously, 5-game slate, not that many ways to do it. Certainly playing the Padres would be one way. And then Cease, did you say if you're going to maybe be over or under the field on that 60% mark?
I think I am going to be, just because like when I do look at the pitching, like Valdez is chalk, and like I talked about not loving Lodolo, like I'm going to have to spend at some point, right? Because when you look at the alternatives are Kyle Hendricks, Jake Woodford, Kershaw, who I don't love, Freeland and Davis Daniels, Stripling and Logan Webb, and I like Webb. Like I think naturally I'm going to have to like that build. Like I'm just going to probably play Cease, and I'm probably going to play some like cheaper stacks and then get some expensive one-offs. That's kind of what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, I have really no problem with that at all. So that is Dodgers and San Diego. 2 more games to talk about. We do jump forward an hour here in terms of lock time. And, of course, at the end of the show, we'll do stacks and pitching and all that stuff. But before we get there, let's talk about Colorado and the LA Angels. Going to be Davis Daniel, rookie for the Angels, pitching here. Obviously, a battle of 2 of the very worst teams in baseball. So we do have, despite 2 bad offenses, actually a relatively high total in this game because of the pitching, both starting pitching and bullpens pretty bad for these teams, Rockies and Angels. Daniel has kind of had a weird season. Was pitching pretty well in the minor leagues, got called up, had that monster performance against Detroit. This was back 2 months ago now, back on June 27th. 8 shutout innings, 8 strikeouts, 36 DraftKings points. Didn't go so well in his next 2 outings. Had pretty bad outings against Oakland and especially bad against Texas. Gets sent back down to AAA. Was pitching okay down there too. They called him back up. And I think they were going to use him in relief, but they just didn't need him over the last few days. So he last pitched at any level, I believe, on July 20th in AAA in the PCL. Had a really good outing, threw 85 pitches in that one. So he's on extra rest here. So I do think Davis Daniel should be more or less a full go. I would expect around 90 pitches for him in this one, assuming things are going okay. And then Kyle Freeland, obviously veteran for the Rockies, has actually pitched decently well this year. Weirdly, been much better at home in Coors Field than on the road. I don't know what to make of that, if anything. But, you do have good matchups for both of these pitchers against 2, like I said, very, very bad offenses. The Rockies in particular have pretty enormous strikeout rates throughout their lineup. And yeah, neither of these teams have swung the bat well. The Angels, I will say, are a better offensive team, certainly against lefties, which, I think makes them a little bit, I don't know if they're going to be highly owned, but I think a pretty interesting stack against Kyle Freeland. And I think Davis Daniel is interesting here as an option at 7,700. Does look like he's going to gain a little bit of ownership in my eyes. I do think that's pretty justified even at 7,700. Over to you, man. Going 2 bad teams here, Rockies and Angels. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I do think people are going to play the Angels, and like you need value, right? If you want to play Dylan Cease and expensive guys. I think the trick is let's play the Rockies. I played the Rockies yesterday. I thought Griffin Canning was terrible play, and it worked out pretty good. I want to go back to the Rockies here. I don't think it's a terrible idea. I need to see that lineup. That definitely does matter a ton. Doyle missed yesterday. I think Doyle will be back in there. I'm always down to not play Charlie Blackmon at 4.5K. It's like if I am going to spend money, I'll spend it on some other stuff. Tovar, McMahon, Doyle are probably my 3 favorites. I'm never a big Chris Bryant guy. Another reason to maybe just play Ohtani at your first base spot, not play Chris Bryant in my stack. I like Toglia. I don't mind him at first if you wanted to. Rogers, Cave, and then even Diaz. I think Diaz has some power, and he'll be very low owned. I like the Rockies. I know it sounds crazy, but this is a young pitcher, and we do not know about that much about him. Why did he get called up? He didn't get called up because he's just magically an ace now and really good. he got called up because it's the second half of the year. They want to see how he is for the next 2 months. It makes perfect sense, of course. And he already got called up once, had some struggles, went back down, and we'll see what he does. But I wouldn't be shocked if he comes back up and has struggles. It could be here against the Rockies. They're just not going to be owned. You're going to see the Angels around like 20%, and then you're going to see the Rockies around that like 5 to like 10% max. And I think you'll see that 5%. I mean, we've seen them on short slates be 5% in cores. What are they going to be outside of cores? So I think it's a good spot for the Rockies. I played them yesterday and it worked out. I'm going to go back to the well for them. They're definitely my favorite contrarian stack on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more on the Daniel side, so we'll disagree, I guess, a little bit on this one. I certainly can't fault you for playing the Rockies against Davis Daniel and the Angels bullpen, who did make some trades out of their bullpen, so it's going to be even weaker than before. Carlos Estevez in particular on the move. And yeah, like you said, I think if you're playing Cease and Valdez or something together, you go with that contrarian Rocky stack. You can see that working out. I think, be over the field on Daniel. He will be Sabres got him at 35% owned. I've got my typical 5 lineups again today. I'll probably have Daniel on 2, maybe 3 of my 5 teams. So either kind of right at or just over the field, and maybe significantly over if I do end up with 3 Daniel. I haven't built my lineups yet. And then what about the Angels? They're going to get ownership, it looks like. Yeah, Sabres got them mostly between 15 and 20% owned. Makes sense. I know they're not a good offense, but I still do want to pick on Kyle Freeland. Rockies, terrible relievers behind Freeland. So, I guess we've agreed on most things. I think this game might be one where I'm more on the Angels side, both hitting and pitching wise, but I certainly get 2 bad teams, probably 2 not great pitchers. Going with the contrarian side of this game, I do think makes certainly some sense, at least from a game theory perspective.
Yeah, it's just a numbers thing, right? Like you see, like for instance, like if it comes in that the Angels are like 15% and the Rockies are 10, like I think the Angels side is better. I think the Angels side gets steamed up as values. I think people are going to mix and match these guys just as value plays. And I know they are getting a little bit pricier in that 4K range, but they just always naturally in the spot come in as that, right? And they're going to grade out well because of how bad that bullpen is. And both bullpens are not good. Like I think a lot of runs are going to be scored here.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. We did get the Rockies lineup, by the way. Blackmon, Tovar, Doyle, McMahon, Bryant, Rogers, Toglia, Diaz, and Cave. So no real surprises there. And yeah, we'll see how the 2 games, Rockies and Angels. These teams probably about ready to go home. They got to play it out for another 2 months. Did you see the Angels did make the very smart move of putting Anthony Rendon back on the injured list right in the middle of the last day of the trade deadline? Kind of sneak that through there while no one can mock them for the Rendon. And then poor Mike Trout had another setback. Man, I don't know if he's ever going to really just get back to it. He was crushing it at the beginning of the year too, but injuries just can't get over him. Kind of sucks to see, but it is what it is. Last game of the slate then, Oakland and San Francisco. We do have Logan Webb going for the Giants. Looks like he'll be among the most popular pitchers today. I think Sabres got him 4th behind Cease, Valdez, Daniel, and coming in around 30%. It seems a little bit light to me against Oakland, but I guess it makes sense because Oakland has been swinging the bat well, and Logan Webb has not pitched well. 3 starts in a row now. Now, one of those was at Coors Field. One was against Toronto, who makes a lot of contact, and then the last one was in LA against the Dodgers. So not the easiest stretch of games for Logan Webb, but still hasn't performed well as of late. And like I said, the A's, I assume they stayed somewhat hot. Actually, I didn't check all the way into that. They were certainly going off, when I was back when I was on the baseball grind before that little trip. But I still do like Logan Webb here. I tend to lean with the market, who does have the A's with pretty clearly, or by a decent margin, with the lowest team total on the slate. We know even with their power, there's a lot of strikeouts to be had. And we also know Logan Webb historically has performed much better at home than he has on the road. That's been true to some extent this year as well. So I do like Logan Webb quite a bit here at 8,600, especially if that ownership holds true and he's only going to be the fourth highest owned pitcher on this slate. That seems a little bit silly to me, frankly. So we'll see on that. And then Ross Stripling going for the A's. He did make his return from injury in his last start through 77 pitches. He gave up 5 runs to the Angels over 5 2/3 innings. I don't think Ross Stripling at this point in his career is very good. Certainly has not pitched at all well this year, sitting with a 6 ERA, 1.6 WHIP. It's been a rough ride for Stripling. I would expect that to continue for the most part going forward. Maybe not tonight against a pretty bad Giants team in a pitcher's park. I don't know if I can get to Stripling. But yeah, I'm mostly in on Webb in this game. What about you, Mangone? What are you doing with Oakland and San Francisco?
Yeah, this is a game I think you could argue both sides. Like, I love Logan Webb today, but
yeah,
I'm not going to ignore that Oakland has power, right? Like, this is one of those slates where you could easily make the argument that one of these Oakland power bats just ends up being on the winner as a one-off or a two-man. So it's a spot where you can play both sides, but I really do like Logan Webb. I think he's the best play in this range between those pitchers that we discussed. If I had to rank Valdez, Lodolo, and Webb, I think I have Webb number 1. That's kind of where I'm at with it. So we'll go with Logan Webb there. I like him a ton, but not going to ignore, Larry Butler, who's been mashing, and Brett Rooker, and a couple of these options. That's all. So I'm not saying I'm 5-manning Oakland, but I think you can look at the power bat one-offs. I don't think they're the worst play. And then, I'm not a big Ross Stripling guy. I know he can have his walk issues, so that's one reason you could argue for the Giants here a little bit. I don't think a lot of people will play Giants. I know Fitzgerald has been mashing. I don't totally hate the Giants today. I don't know if I'll be 5-manning them. They feel better to do a 4, 3, or 2-man stack, but I don't think you should ignore the Giants here against Stripling because I think it could be a bit of a disaster spot, and they have bats that can go off like Chapman and Ramos. This part just sucks though, right? That's why I don't really want to go for those huge stacks and why I want to stick more to those minis when it comes to this team.
Yeah, Stripling, getting up there in age a little bit, and it's just been terrible this year in general. So I do think the Giants are interesting. I kind of like them more as a full stack if I'm playing them, just because it's hard to hit for power at this park. You kind of need to string hits together to get there. And then the other thing is it's kind of a bet against Stripling, right? He's been bad enough this year that I don't mind just kind of making the full-on bet against him and hoping that he just kind of continues this decline that we've seen so far on the season. He's been injured. It just hasn't gone well for Stripling. So I don't mind the Giants as a contrarian option. I can't play Stripling, I don't think, myself. And then Logan Webb, I do think is a very solid option. I doubt I'm going to play many A's. I get it if you're chasing power, but Webb doesn't give up that much. I mean, he's only given up 7 home runs on 135 innings on the year. I assume, 3 home runs all year long at home in 60 innings. Just kind of hard for the A's to get there, especially because power is really kind of their calling card. Usually when the A's go off, it is via the long ball. But given that Webb doesn't give it up and this park is hard to hit him out, I do think Webb seems pretty safe here despite, poor performances in 3 straight starts. Appreciate all the welcome backs. Lots of people saying that in chat, so do appreciate that. It is good to be back. Excited to watch some baseball tonight and get back in the streets. That's all 5 games, Mangone. We are still waiting on lineups for the A's, Giants, and Angels, Dodgers as well. So, we don't have all the lineups yet, but I think we did a good job breaking those games down. Let's get to this fun stuff at the end. We'll probably get out of here a little bit early with the 5-game slate. But before we do, let's get to stacks. Your favorite overall stack, Mangone, and your favorite contrarian stack.
Yeah, favorite overall stack seems pretty easy for me today. I think it's the Astros. They're going to be my favorite overall stack. I'm going to be well over on them. So Astros will be the team that I like the most. And then the contrarian stack will be the Rockies. I talked them up a bunch. I want Rockies exposure. So load up some Rockies for me.
I like it. I do like the Reds, but I'm actually going to go with you and ride with the Astros as my favorite stack, just given how bad Woodford has been. So Astros favorite stack, contrarian stack. I'm going to go with the Giants on this one against Ross Stripling. Just don't think Stripling has much left at this point. I know the park sucks, but I still think a stack can get there. Stripling starts walking guys. I think they're going to put the ball in play, and hopefully you can get a home run or two somewhere in that stack to get you over the hump. Also, I feel more comfortable going with the stack in San Francisco contrarian on a 5-game slate, right? Because you might not need 10 runs, right? 6, 7, 8 runs could be enough to get the job done on a shorter slate like we have tonight. Most important pitcher, man, going, who you riding tonight with at SP?
It's probably Logan Webb. I think he's the most important pitcher to me. A little late night hammer, and hope that Oakland can just chill out, And listen, if Brent Rooker takes one deep, hopefully it's a solo shot, right? Just be kind to me, Oakland. It's not the daytime; it's at night. So hopefully Logan Webb can get the job done.
Yeah, he would have been my answer too. I will go though with Nick Lodolo instead. Looks like he's going to be pretty low owned on this slate, 15% or so. I understand, given the other strong pitching options, and given that it is the toughest place to pitch in Great American Ballpark on the slate. I will pull up that radar in Cincinnati real quick to see, because obviously with Lodolo, it's risky, and then the Reds are going to be popular too. Looking at it now, looks like it's going to start raining there soon, and then I do think it's going to clear out in Cincinnati. Frankly, probably in time to start this game on time, and I don't think there will be further issues beyond that. So, it's going to rain there soon, but I do think this game's going to be fine to play. I do think in the end I'll be comfortable playing Lodolo, and if we get a little ownership discount because of a weather scare, that would be nice as well. So that's pitching. Let's go to home runs. Who's going yard today, man? Go.
Home run. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 home runs, DC. I want to give out 2. I liked him yesterday too, and I think he keeps it going. Mr. Ryan McMahon, he'll be one of them, and Jake Myers for the Houston Astros. He'll be another one that goes yard.
All right, I like that. Home run call for me. I know this is kind of cheating, but I got to go with my guy Yordan Alvarez, who I think is going to do some damage against Woodford. I think one of the best plays on the slate, and then I'll go with Candelario down there in the 6 hole for the Cincinnati Reds. So Alvarez, Candelario. Clips is giving us the business. So I miss getting the business from the peanut gallery here in the chat. But I'll go home runs. You gave 2, I'll give 2. Yordan Alvarez and Heimer Candelario. And finally, your favorite hitter on the slate, Matt. Go.
Yeah, favorite hitter. I was going to say Yordan, but let's go with a different guy. I like Ezekiel Tovar a bit, so we'll go with him. Let everyone else play Ellie De La Cruz. Hopefully we get the 0-for-4 Ellie De La Cruz game, and then Tovar can be a great play there, so I'll go with him.
And I think this is fair. I'm going to go with Ohtani on this slate. I'm going to try to get as much Ohtani in my lineup as I can, partly because I'll probably be under the field on the 60% Dylan Cease, just because that's kind of how I like to play in general. And then, you get the leverage and all that. So I'll go with Ohtani. Obviously has the skill to get it done. Should be low owned as well. That's this baseball slate. McGowan, I know you've been in the best ball streets. I feel like you've been in the best ball streets over the last week or so. Is that the case? You got any hot best ball takes for us? Because they're heating up for me. I'll be firing away. Obviously, the Discord channel over at Run Peers been going well on the best ball streets as well. Do you have any hot takes for football season, best ball or otherwise?
Hot takes. I love the Cardinals offense. They're a little expensive though. I think Chase Brown is a really good value that you can grab pretty late in drafts, and I like him. I think the team I really like to get like super late, like when kind of shit hits the fan and like you need to find something. And I still think they're pretty good overall. Will Levis, the Titans stack. So you do the Levis, you can grab Chikakongwu if you want. I don't love him, but again, it's like desperate. You're in a tight spot. And I mean, Tyler Boyd's late there as well. So there you go. I'm not saying I think Will Levis is amazing, but I think he's going to be in a lot of competitive trailing games, and that's good for football, right? So I'm in on it.
I regret asking. If I would have known Will Levis was coming, I would have just ended the show right there. But we'll see. Plenty of time to get in the best ball streets. The Bears are the team that's kind of been growing on me. That wide receiver room, Keenan Allen, Dunze, obviously, and DJ Moore, Caleb Williams got the talent. I think the Bears going to put up some points this year. But that'll do it for this show. I think we have enough games tomorrow on Thursday to do a show at the normal time. If not, we'll be here bright and early. But either way, we will have a show for you guys on Thursday, Friday, of course, as well. And I'll be back to my normal schedule now that I'm back in the state where you can play DFS and gamble and all that good stuff. But that'll do it for this show. For Mangone, I'm Draft Cheat. We're out of here.